Good afternoon. Today we will be talking about food addiction. Anytime that we talk about a specific kind of addiction, a lot of times there's a sense of confusion or uncertainty, especially if you personally don't suffer with any type of addiction. And so when we talk about food addiction, we think about things sometimes like who can it affect? And a lot of times I think we think about, those shows that you see like My 500 Pound Life, or we see commercials of people just continuing to shove donuts in their face. And I think at one point we're all guilty of doing that. I know I am. But it's where does that line stop? And where does it start to become an addiction? And that's something that labeling and that identification can be kind of confusing. So today we're going to talk about the people who are susceptible to it, different causes and triggers to it, and the treatments about food addiction. So food addiction becomes dependent upon the good feeling that you obtain from consuming certain types of food. So that gives us a feeling that we need to continue to eat even when we are not hungry. So, like substance addictions, foods that are rich in fat or in sugar can supercharge our brain reward system. So, it gives us a good feeling. Our brain gets wired and is like, wow, that felt good. I want to continue to doing that. And so when our brain has this supercharge in our reward system, sometimes that can overpower our brain's ability to tell the person to stop eating. So they would rather have that good, positive reward feeling, and that will overtake their conscious or their control to be like, okay, cut the line. So in these cases, the more that someone eats, the more that he or she wants to continue eating. So the characteristic of addictive eating is such as reward-based eating and perceived lack of control around food. So people can be like, well, why doesn't that person just stop or just don't eat that next chocolate chip cookie? But like I said, our desire to want to have that good feeling from that food and from those hormones being released in our brain will overpower our sense of control. So just like somebody who is struggling with a substance addiction, there's parallels between substance abuse and food addiction. So such as cravings, everyone knows that it's hard to say no to that chocolate chip cookie. I know that I'm always like trying to sneak some, but a lot of times we can be like, okay, no, but those cravings will overtake that. And then the tolerance and the repeated failure to stop those consumptions of those food can just lead to some consequences. So, like I said before, we have different hormones in our brain that release when we have these good feelings of food. So, our obesity tendencies can be facilitated by these hormones and these chemicals that are released in our brain that can increase or decrease our appetite. So, the positive reward given by the release of hormones has the power to outweigh our control. So, some causes or some triggers that we might have. Um, there are many reasons that somebody can start being addicted to food, whether it's biological, psychological, or even social reasons. So, like we said, the biological reasons, a lot of times, those are the hormones and the chemicals that release that, tell ourselves and about our appetite, whether we're hungry, whether we're not. And then those good feelings, like we said, overpower sometimes our control, whether even if there is a consequence present. So, psychological reasons, a lot of times, is a response to a traumatic event. I know I can speak for myself. If I have a stressful week or if I, did bad on an exam or something, you kind of go and get that comfort food. You go out, you eat a brownie, you indulge in some Cheetos or whatever it might be. So a lot of times people are trying to find that comfort and are trying to get rid of that feeling of trauma, to kind of brush it under the rug and kind of fill something up for a little bit. Our social, they can come from stressful life events. So, whether that's with family, whether that's with friends or anything like that. Social, as social beings, a lot of times that can impact our decisions. And those can lead to different food addictions that people, might be, like I said, eating comfort food and might not know when to stop. And then they're down the road and addicted to food, and they never thought that they would be there. So some different signs that can come from this addiction is, you will start eating more that your body can physically tolerate. So you just keep eating and eating and eating, whether you're feeling physically ill or not. You want to continue to try to get that good feeling that is released, whether it makes you sick or whether you can't take one more bite or whatever it might be. A lot of times, a sign of a food addiction is eating to avoid things. So, or eating in isolation. If it's midnight and you're in your room by yourself and you have some snacks under your bed and you're just constantly consuming those, that isolation can be a sign of despair or a sign of something else that's wrong. And then we use that food to kind of, fill the void. And it can often lead to fatigue if we aren't giving our body the right nutrients and the right vitamins and the right calories that it needs. Our body will begin to be like, hey, what the heck is going on? This isn't stuff that I need. I don't need another donut. I can't move like that. I can't, work like that. So a lot of times you'll see people who are fatigued and just seeking out certain foods to help them. And then it can have effects in all aspects of your life. So, it can be in social events. So, like I said, if you're just more fatigued or you don't really feel like hanging out or you don't really just have the energy and you just want to kind of be by yourself and just consume food, that can be a negative effect, and that can be a trigger and a kind of a red flag of that food addiction. Also, a lack of concentration, whether it's in work or in school. Like I said, if your body isn't getting the right nutrients that it needs, it kind of it can give you these negative side effects and these negative consequences. Again, with low self-esteem, a lot of times it leads to obesity, which then can give people distorted body images and low self-esteem in the way that they look. So there's just a lot of negative effects that come from this that people with food addiction can be susceptible to. And when we think about any sort of addiction, we like to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We like to see that there's hope and that there's a treatment. And there are a lot of treatments for food addictions. There are, a lot of people overlook food addiction as a mental health disorder. But there can be, like we stated, major complications, just like with any other substance abuse or mental health disorder. There can be a lot of consequences if left untreated. So if you know someone, or if you think you might yourself be someone who suffers from a food addiction, there's a lot of hope and a lot of treatments out there for people to seek. So there's a lot of specialized food addiction treatment centers that address medical issues and nutritional concerns, as long as they and as well as they try to integrate that psychotherapy for you, so that you can understand kind of the process in your brain, the hormones, the chemicals, what's being released, why your reward system is overpowering your self-control. And there's also a lot of support groups, whether that's Overeater Anonymous or anything like that. And there's just a lot of tools and resources out there that can give a lot of people hope for food addictions. So I hope you all learned a little bit today about what food addiction is, how it plays a role biologically, socially in your life, some causes and effects of it, and different treatments for hope.